Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ema. Hello, Ema. How are you doing today?
My goodness, so peachy, honey bear, my little lovey. Yes. I remind me of I was reminded today of my mother when I would come into the kitchen and wish her good morning. She would say to me, "What's so damn good about it?"
Oh, well, that's because she was a wonderful woman who grew up in the 1920s and 30s and saw horrors beyond anybody's comparison and understanding.
Yeah. Tough generation, a tough generation.
It is what it is.
Of course, she was joking when she said that. She really was joking, of course.
Yeah, seems like it's a nice, funny joke. This week's topic is going to be funny stories from school. I actually have a funny story from school. One time, so there was this prank show that came out when I was in like ninth grade. I think it was called Trigger Happy TV. And one of my friends he was such a class clown. Came up with this idea that we all get together and we get newspapers and we poke eye holes into them and start following random people. And then as we're following these random people, he asked them, "Excuse me, do you ever get the feeling you're being watched?" And exactly. It was a cute thing. I think another point.
I'm trying to figure out how you did this. So they took these random newspapers. They pretended they were reading the newspaper when they were actually following somebody. Is that how they did it?
Okay. So you know how someone reads a newspaper?
You hold it in front of your face. Yeah.
Now imagine you poke eye holes in it. Like there's two holes for eyes in the middle of the newspaper.
Oh, now I see.
Yeah. So that's how it is. It was like five of us. We're just randomly watching different people and just following them. And then he would go over and be like, "Excuse me, sir, do you ever get the feeling you're being watched?" Another funny story actually happened where our teacher gave us a assignment where we would take a single page from any part of our school book, and we'd have to read it out loud, and it would have to be a challenge to us to be able to read, comprehend, and do a little bit of public speaking. So the same guy went ahead and took the introduction sheet that the only word it said was drama. And he opened up the book in middle class and screamed, "Drama!" And that's all he did.
What was the teacher's reaction?
She thought it was very funny. She's like, very cute, very sweet. She's like, "Okay, now choose another page to do." And then he was like, "Okay." And then I think he took another one and he read out loud. Another story actually was we were in high school and they were doing construction in the gymnasium, and the construction crew left one of their bulldozers, the small tiny bulldozers, on the field. They were doing construction, and one of my friends realized that you don't really need any key whatsoever. You just need like a screwdriver and that's it. So he hijacked the bulldozer and like rode around it for like 5-10 minutes. And then
my God.
Yeah, he got suspended for like a day or two.
Tell me, did he say was it worth being suspended to have the fun of riding around on the bulldozer?
Probably was, honestly. Looking back, I got suspended. I used to think it was such a big deal. And like I would just get I don't know, it's a day off. Seriously.
I remember our pediatrician talking to me about school discipline, about how he took issue with a lot of the schools that basically used suspension as the how can I say it, the front line, the first line of action.
Yeah.
And he said suspension does nothing. It just gives the kid a day off. It doesn't teach him a thing. He says what you should do is have a room, like a disciplinary room, and the kid has to come to school and he or she has to do the work, but they can't interact with the class. They have to do it in this disciplinary room, but it is not a day off for them.
Yeah, I
He said
guess.
he did not like, he didn't feel suspension really was an effective means of punishment at all.
I was watching this Instagram guy. He's on this. He posts videos, and it's very interesting. He was in prison for like 20 years, and he explains different experiences he's had in prison. And one of the things he said that a lot of schools prepare kids for prison. Just the
Ah,
way their disciplinary actions, the way they handle things, the way they resolve the issues, it's all a form of prison. And it gets people to understand and like get used to being in prison. Like if you're bad, you're taken away from the group, you're put in a separate, you're solitary confinement, so to speak. You're put in a separate room. He goes a little more into detail, but I think that's why when it comes to disciplining, there has to be a new approach because it's not, I would say it's working, but it can work better. Um, I think I look at the Netherlands when it comes to disciplinary actions and the prison system and how they help them get back on their feet and get into normal lives. Because in America, if you're in prison and then you leave and you try to start up, like you try to start a life without being involved in crime, it's kind of hard because no one wants to hire you because you were in prison. So how do you expect them to do anything? How do you expect them to grow? How do you expect them to really
mhm,
have a good, like, start to, like, they did khatasi, they did their time, they're ready to move on, and they can't.
mhm. It's a very good point. That's such a, well, I remember in my day, um, suspension was the ultimate when nothing else worked. There were, I remember you had to write sentences. Remember the old sentences? Some kids had to do it on the board. Some kids had to go home and do it at home. They write like 100 times, 300 times. I will not talk in class, or I will not whatever. There were also had to write apology notes. Um, there were things like that. We had to, instead of playing during recess, instead of playing during recess, you would have to walk around the schoolyard picking up all the trash in the schoolyard or all the trash in the building.
we had
And
something we had something similar to that in school. Of course, we did the whole like writing 100 times, I will not, throw paper in class, um, or we would have kids picking up trash. But I remember kids picking up trash and fixing up stuff during the time that they had class. And I remember this one teacher I had, Mr. Blitz, and he wouldn't make us write like anything 1,000 times. He had rules of conduct in in the class, and that if we got in trouble, we would have to write the rules of conduct. And it was like a good, like, on printed paper on 8F by 11, the whole sheet. So we would have to really sit down and write the whole thing. I never had to write it down, but I remember we had that. That was good. He knew how to conduct a class, at least when I was there. I found out later on that like other kids were like didn't want to, I don't know, didn't like him, didn't want to deal with anything, and like cause more trouble, which was weird because like for us, like it was a very good controlled class, and we all were happy to, you know,
mhm.
happy to be in the class. So we had back on track though. We kind of lost track. The
School
story was about
jokes.
funny things happen in school. You were telling me earlier that you had like a few funny like pranks or
When I was in high school, the vice principal owned a farm. I forgot where it was, but he owned a farm. And so every now and then, some of the kids, for a joke, when they found out where his farm was located, would put up a for sale sign with the school's phone number on his farm. And the school would get all these calls from people who wanted to buy the farm. And I'm trying to think what other jokes. When I was in college, um, there was one time where I don't know, one of the kids in our class was sitting on a table, like this long table, and all of a sudden the table collapsed. So it was, when the professor would come in, he would come in with his briefcase, and he always would walk in, slam the briefcase down on the table, and then pull up a chair and sit down at the table and then begin his lecture. You know, open up his briefcase, take out his notes, begin his lecture. So we thought, let's take the table, let's put it back up. And when he comes in and slams his briefcase down, the whole table's going to collapse.
That's
So we
awesome.
did that. We put the table back together, and he came in, and just as he's about to slam his briefcase down, he stops, he looks, he goes, hey, he goes, something's wrong with this table. And he asked a couple of the kids to just take the table and pull it to the side. And he just took like a smaller table that was available and put his briefcase down.
Shoot.
Looking at each other going,
Shoot.
darn.
I'm trying to think if we had anything like that. Was there any shtick like that regarding, like, I think in middle school we had a few teachers who couldn't control the class, and we used to just
that's very typical for a lot of schools. Like, in fact, in many schools, that's the norm.
it's just like they were weak. They were weak people, and that's the truth. And middle schoolers can sniff that out from a mile away.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's just, we had this one teacher, and he was trying to teach everything, and he was trying to be super strict. And the problem with super strict is we don't care. Like, sometimes when you get super strict, it gets to a point where it's like you're diminishing on your returns. You're like, no one
That's
cares.
right.
Like, all right, fine, whatever. You
That's
know?
right.
And he would be like, go to the principal's office, go to the principal's office. And it just, no one really cared. No one was like, oh, we'll go to the principal, who cares? What is he gonna do? And like the principal like gave us a whole long talk and tried to like suspend us or scare us and whatever. And we're like, all right, whatever. It's no big deal. And it just, I don't know, that year in general, that was my seventh grade. Seventh grade, a lot, like, I didn't do so well in school. It was very rough. A lot of things were going on. I know we had Rabbi Dinowitzer. He was a good rabbi. He used to have a computer and a screen, projector screen up front of the class, and we used to look at the projector screen, and we used to go through the Gemara and all that stuff, and we would have a lot of things happening. That was
audio
very
visual
fun.
right there. Yeah, I had that for a few classes in college where in music theory, where the teacher would, there was a certain type of projector that we used to have, and I don't know what it is. They took it off the market. I don't know why. It was great. It was not the overhead. The overhead projector, you had to make a separate stencil to put it on there. But there was another type of projector where you could take a book or a picture or anything, you put it on this little tray, you slid this, what am I looking for? It's like a lever. You slid this lever across the side, and the lever brought the tray up into the projector, and whatever you wanted could be projected on the wall, magnified. And you could magnify it too. It was a fantastic educational tool. And one of our professors in it's called form and analysis, where you have to take a musical composition and analyze it. And he did that for one of his classes. It was, really, really excellent. That way the whole class could see it and be engaged at one time rather than, the problem with a book is a lot of times, if a teacher tells you, like, look on this paragraph, look at this line. Well, which line? 5 from the top. Well, how are you counting that line? Are you counting whole sentences or half sentences? Sometimes it's hard to try to understand, the third word from the end. Which end? The right or the left end? Yeah. Whereas with this thing, you put it in, you shine it on the wall, you take a pointer, and boom, you point right to the very word that you want the whole class to see.
Yeah. Oh,
I gave a talk one time like that. We had to, in 8th grade, we had to do a project on a foreign country. And Life magazine, a few weeks before that, had a huge, it went for 2 weeks, spread on life in Japan. And all I had to do, instead of me having to sit in the library for hours, all I had to do for that report was cut out the pictures, and I got up and I showed it. I put it in this one of these type of projectors. I showed each picture to the class. I explained what was going on in each picture. This is how they eat. This is how they this, that. Well, when it came to the geisha houses, it showed these, women from the geisha houses entertaining this man. And I said, the geisha house, it's like a restaurant. It's for men. And these are, Japanese waitresses. And I said, and they dance for him. They play musical instruments while he's eating. They entertain him. And now this is 8th grade, 14, 13-year-old kids just discovering certain inyanim of life for the first time. So when I said they entertain him, some of the kids in the class started giggling. And I said, not that kind of entertainment. And the whole class burst out laughing. Someone later on said to me, what was with your teacher? I said, what? So when you were giving that talk, he was outside in the hall laughing hysterically. He couldn't stop laughing. He was totally bent over.
Oh gosh, that's funny. Didn't you race mice back in like high school?
Oh yes, when I was in high school, I was a member of the science club, biology club. Mm-hmm. And so they had this big fair one afternoon where all the different clubs had to set up like booths, with games or refreshments or, like whatever your club was, whether it was the cooking club. So you did something with cooking, it was the sewing club. And so the biology club, we decided, what are we going to do? We decided, let's have mouse races. Because Channel 45 on the television in those days used to, believe it or not, have gerbil races.
Oh, wow. That's fun.
So we decided we're going to have mouse races. So I got dressed up in a leotard and black tights with Mickey Mouse ears. And I made this long tail for myself and to go around advertising the mouse races. As a matter of fact, someone took a picture of me and they wanted to put it in the school yearbook, but the teachers wouldn't let them because they said it was not Cineas. Because I was in this leotard. It was a tight, kind of a tight leotard. I had the body for it then. I don't now. But so anyway, we set up the mouse races, and the mice. I was in charge of the mice, by the way. I was in charge of having to take them home, feed them, take care of them. Bring them back, put them in the little compartments for racing. Well, one of the mice escaped, and it was running along the floor, and I was running along the floor, trying to catch this mouse. And I hear, and all these girls are screaming. Girls, for some reason, I don't know why girls have that reaction to a mouse. I guess because they run very fast and they can startle you. Mice are nothing to be afraid of. Mice will not bite. Rats are something to be afraid of.
Rats are chewing right through you.
Oh yes, they're aggressive. But mice are not. Mice are scared. Mice will run, and mice will not bother you. And so, I think, like I said, I think girls scream because they get startled by how fast the mouse runs. So this mouse was, oh my God, I'm crawling along the floor basically I'm trying to swim in a sea of legs along the floor, trying to catch this mouse, hearing all these girls screaming, seeing them jumping and running. I mean, it was, quite what can I say?
Quite a spectacle.
Yes.
Did we, we never had, we did have science fairs. My class would always be the one skipping it. Either my grade or my class didn't do science fairs. I know Yosef Menachem did science fairs. One did it on the atomic bomb.
That was Yosef. Yosef did research on the bomb that they dropped on Hiroshima, and he did a scale model, a cutting. How was that? Am I talking about? It's when you cut into the middle of something to show what the inside
diorama. A sectional diagram.
Yeah, what was a diagram? He took a styrofoam balls, and cut them in half, and colored them, and to show the different parts of the inside of the atomic bomb that they dropped on Hiroshima. And your father and I, we were looking at this, and we just said, "Wow!" In our day, had any kid that was classified information in our days, and any kid showed up with a science fair with this information, for sure, the FBI would have been banging at our parents' door the very next morning, wanting to know how we got that information.
Well, I think I remember this was must have been 10 years ago. There was a little, I think it was an Arab kid who was trying to explain how clocks work, and he just took a clock and deconstructed it and brought it to school, and people freaked out, thought it was a bomb, and it became like the news for like a week
Oh, I think I
about this
remember
kid.
that.
Yeah, and all the
Yes.
kid did was he just deconstructed an alarm clock and was trying to show in the science fair how alarm clocks work, and it just
Oh
went
my
nuts.
God.
Um,
Oh gosh.
I think
Oh gosh.
I
Well, but you know what? I'll tell you, you just jogged my mind about an incident that happened when iPhones first came. I don't know, iPhone, when these communication things first came out with earbuds and little microphones that you could attach in your shirt and talk to each other. There was a group of men who were traveling together. I think they were either Arab or Indian, and this was brand new technology. And they didn't want to become separated. They were sitting in different sections of the plane, and they wanted to make sure that each one knew where the other one was. So as soon as the plane landed, they could all get together. And they were traveling. I forgot where they were traveling to. I think it might have been the United States or something, from whatever foreign country they were from. And so the people, like the flight attendants, noticed that there were these like dark complexioned men who like had their heads down and were talking. And so they got scared. They notified the authorities. As soon as the plane landed, the authorities came on the plane, got the men off. They said, they thought they were dealing with these terrorists, and found out, no, these are just ordinary people. But this was new technology that most people didn't have. It had just come on the market, and they were, I guess, ahead of the game. And they were just using it to talk to each other and so they could find each other at the end of the trip.
Yeah, so I was going to add to what we talked about earlier. I think it was Joseph Runnamuck was doing, one of them did bomb shelters, and the 1960s bomb shelters. And they said actually that no one would survive a nuclear holocaust in a bomb shelter if the bomb went off, because they would actually be cooking. It would turn into a giant oven, and you would cook.
They a lot of, it's interesting. They found there was some what happened in the firebombing of Dresden gave scientists like how can you say it, like a precursor of what would happen in case of a nuclear holocaust. And yeah, what you said, that's what happened in Dresden.
What happened in Dresden? What they
Okay, there was the way that they taught it to us in college was that Churchill firebombed Dresden as a retaliation for the Germans bombing Coventry in England.
Okay.
So what it was like, it was a concentrated bombing of this little town. I mean, Dresden wasn't a military, wasn't type of any like military type town. It was basically, supposedly just an ordinary civilian type town that had no military advantage whatsoever. And that the result of this concentrated firebombing, was what you had was basically an inferno.
Wow. Jeez.
But we studied it in college in biology class as a to show us basically the data that scientists were able to draw from it and relate that to the effects of what would be a nuclear bombing.
Yeah.
Because even though these bombs were not nuclear bombs, the bombing,
the intensity.
Yes, the intensity of the bombing would have equaled that.
Jeez. Back to our conversation about funny things in school.
Let's find something funnier to talk about.
Yeah, I know you had a story about being a teacher in public school, and because of your size.
Me, a little 5'2", me, little itsy bitsy 5. But what happened was, I was teaching music in the inner city in Baltimore, and my principal one day said to me, he says, whenever we get a supervisor that comes here, the same thing always happens. The supervisor comes to me and says, there is no teacher in room 225. And I tell them, there is a teacher in room 225. And they say, no, there is not a teacher in room 225. And I take them up to your room. I point at you through the glass door and the glass in the door. And I say, that's the teacher. And the supervisor said to me, since when do you hire 12-year-olds?
Then we had another story about eggs in Crown Heights.
Oh, yeah. That I got the story like second and third hand. So I cannot certify the authenticity. But the story was this: Crown Heights in the early 70s, unfortunately, there was a lot of racial tension.
Really? Racial tension in Crown Heights? That's crazy. How did that happen?
So anyway, I mean, my girlfriends and I, like walking down the street, we had all sorts of, mishigassen that happened with us. But in this particular story, this bacher was walking down Kingston Avenue, and there was a carload of Black gentlemen who started yelling at him all sorts of obscenities and anti-Semitic remarks. So finally he couldn't take it anymore. He ran. There was a grocery store where there was a whole display of eggs, like right there by the door. He runs in, he grabs a carton of eggs, he runs out, and he just starts hurling these eggs one after the other through the windows were open. It was summertime, so he's hurling them through the window at these guys, and the whole dozen, just throwing them at him one after one. And of course, these guys, like, they pull away as fast as they can. And he goes back into the store and he says to the store owner, "How much do I owe you?" And the store owner says to him, "That's okay, it's on the house."
That's awesome.
And then there was one time I was walking down the street with these girls from South Africa. And so there were these anti-Semitic Black girls walking behind us, and they're saying, the girl from South Africa I was walking with was a rather heavyset girl. They're going, "Look at that fat girl with her fat belly and her fat legs." And then they referred to me and said, "Look at that girl with her thin legs, and look at the way she's dressed." And they're saying like all these like very catty, insulting things to us. So this girl from South Africa says to me, what's going on? Or what are they doing? I said, "They're trying to pick a fight." She goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, you're supposed to get offended and turn around and say, 'What did you say?' And they're supposed to say it to your face. And then you're supposed to throw the first punch, and they're supposed to punch you back. And that's how the fight's supposed to start." So she just like shook her head, like, we just kind of laughed and kept walking. Then there was one time a friend of mine and I, we had these anti-Semitic girls were behind us. It's just me and my roommate. And they're, saying all these anti-Semitic things to us, whatever. And we're ignoring them. And then we notice they're getting very, very close to us, very close. And I realized right away, these girls are going to attack us at any minute. So we were walking right past a kosher restaurant. So very, very quickly, I grabbed my friend and said, "Let's go in." And we just walked like very quickly, like a very sharp turn, like in a split second, turned right into this kosher restaurant, walked right in. So we sit down, we decide, you know what, let's drink some coffee, have some snacks, and wait for these girls to leave. Yeah, we got some coffee, got some, cake or whatever, pie. And we're sitting at the table and we look at the door. They're right outside the door waiting for us.
Oh my gosh.
And we just started laughing. We said, we can always order another cup of coffee and pie. We can sit here and talk and drink coffee. And we thought, so you guys just get tired out there. We'll wait it out.
So what was in the conclusion? What exactly happened?
They got tired of waiting for us and left.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's actually that. I was going to talk about the egg story. I remember me and my friend, we were going to throw eggs at our principal in middle school. God, middle school was just a train wreck. But I chickened out in the end.
Kids at that age have no mercy.
Oh, yeah. There's no mercy and no fear of death.
It's survival of the fittest at that age.
It's just brutal. It's just brutal out there. Jeez Louise. Trying to think, anything else funny happened in school? And
Oh,
then
I told you the story about the Diamond Gang. I think we put that on another one of our podcasts.
I think we
Diamond
talked
Gang.
about. I think we did talk about it. Just refresh my memory, and I'll let you
Yeah.
know.
Okay. Your father remembers it very well because he and I went to the same elementary school.
Okay.
And someone started a rumor. We didn't know who started this rumor about there was a gang called the Diamond
Oh,
Gang.
I remember this. Yes. It's so weird that like rumors happen. Like there was a rumor that happened that was spread. I remember actually. You know what? I talked about this. We had this topic a couple podcasts ago. We talked about it previously. I remember this. All right, never mind then.
Well, maybe then we got some new listeners who want to hear it.
Yeah, go through the podcast, listen to the other ones. I'm not going to repeat myself.
You're not going to repeat it.
No, I don't believe in repeating myself.
Okay. Oh, but the funny thing, they talk about rumors. Did we go the one about the blue-eyed cicadas?
Oh yes, we talked about that. Yes.
I mean, that made the local news.
It's just narshkite.
The spokesperson from Hopkins had to get up there and tell make an announcement. Say, we said there was no truth to the rumor that Hopkins is looking for blue-eyed cicadas for cancer research. Will all you boys who are showing up here with Drosophilus cicadas please stop?
Yeah. All right, so that's it. We're on reruns right now.
Well, as you get old, what can I say? You start reminiscing about the good old days if they were good.
Yeah, it's fine. We didn't peak. What are you talking about? The good years are ahead of us.
Oh man, I think there was a song that was written by Carole King.
Yeah.
That went, "These are the good old days."
These are the good old days. I like that.
That was such a true song. These are the good old days. I don't think there's any truth to the good old days, quite honestly.
You don't think so? You think it's all
nope.
It's all hooey?
I think it's there's in the song, the Burt Bacharach song, "The Way We Were."
Yeah.
Could it have all been so simple then? Or has time rewritten every line?
Ooh, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good point.
Honestly, I like the way I'm living now.
I do. I honestly do. It's funny. It's like I like my life that is now. And I think you're always going to see things in rose-tinted glasses at the end of your life. Maybe that's what death is, that when you're dying, you look back at your life. You're going to reminisce in a good way, perhaps. I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, maybe that's what death is all about. That's what it's all about. Just looking back and then realizing that you made an impact in this world. And if not, then that was your hell. Looking back at your life is the heaven or the hell. That's and because time slows down so long, it feels like it's an eternity. But the hell or the heaven is the goodness or the bad that someone did. I don't know. I think about this stuff sometimes. All righty.
Can we at least tell a joke before we sign off?
Two Jews walk to a bar. One says the other, "Hey." I have nothing. I got nothing. All right, Emma. I love you.
Oh, I heard this is a cute joke. The rabbi, the priest, and the minister, they decide they're going to send them on a rocket ship around the world because they want to see, as religious leaders, what experience they're going to have. So the minister comes off the rocket ship and says, "I really felt closer to God. It was a very, very spiritual experience." The priest comes off and says, "Yes, definitely. I just felt closer to heaven and to the hereafter, very uplifting." The rabbi comes off wearing talis and tefillin and is totally out of breath and looks like a wreck. And he goes, "Shachris mincha marav, shachris mincha marav, shachris mincha marav."
That's awesome. All right, that's our time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Emma, for joining. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good Shabbos, sweetheart. Love you.
I love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I know you would like it, and my mother would too.